So, what happened to that story? I occasionally get asked about this topic, so I'd like to start by discussing it. Then, I'd like to move on and talk about how China is an incredibly hierarchical society. To begin with, let's talk about the what happened to that story part. China has long been said to have various risks, but one of the things people wonder about is the state of their food. There have been many stories, such as cardboard being found in food or injecting water into meat to increase its weight, things that are unimaginable in Japan. But a rather famous story is about gutter oil being used in food, and many people might already know about it. This issue gained significant attention at one point, but people are still asking, is it still being used in food? The truth is, it's still being used by certain people, and there are even discussions online about how to tell the difference between gutter oil and proper oil. Cases of businesses getting busted for using it are also still happening. Now, I'd like to show you an example. In Sichuan province, 10 people were sentenced for using gutter oil at a local restaurant. The shareholders of the company were ordered to pay 145.1 million yen, about 300 million yen in total, or approximately $2.7 million. This is described as a punitive fine in the article, similar to the punitive damages system well known in the US, and it's clear that China also has such systems, where large sums can be demanded as compensation. This particular case was uncovered in 2022, and the verdict was handed down this September. The case was discovered as part of a special investigation conducted by authorities looking for businesses that might be using gutter oil. Now, you might wonder where exactly this business was located, so let's take a look at the map. The red circle marks a place in Sichuan province called Ziyang, which is quite remote, and probably not a place frequented by foreigners. So, this incident occurred in a very local area, but such cases still exist even in remote regions of China. What this case reveals is that the quantity of oil being used is significant. Gutter oil is collected from used cooking oil, and instead of using it as is, it's processed to a certain extent to remove the color and smell, making it harder to detect as reused oil. Collecting and processing oil is often done by large, organized groups. Making and collecting gutter oil without drawing attention from outsiders is quite challenging, but surprisingly, the process of gathering and refining this oil is actually a legal business in China. That's right, collecting used oil for processing is a legitimate business, which makes it difficult to tell whether it's for illegal purposes or legal business. That's the scary part. Now, here's something even more alarming. A significant amount of gutter oil collected in China is actually being exported to the US in the first half of the year alone. 600,000 tons were exported to the US. The US imports around 1 million tons of used cooking oil, or something similar, from around the world every 6 months, and about 60% of that comes from China. Of course, this oil isn't used for food in the US, it's processed into aviation fuel. Since it's cheaper and more efficient than using petroleum, the US buys used cooking oil from all over the world, including China. This means that collecting and refining used cooking oil has become a full-fledged business in China. Therefore, just because someone is collecting used oil doesn't necessarily mean they're doing something illegal. However, the problem arises when that oil ends up being used as cooking oil in restaurants. This happens because gutter oil is cheap, so restaurants continue to use it. Thus, when dining out in China, you never really know what kind of oil is being used. To protect yourself, cooking at home seems to be the only safe option. But even then, it's not guaranteed that the oil you buy at the supermarket is safe. For instance, there have been cases where industrial oil transporters didn't clean their tanks before transporting cooking oil, which means even newly bought oil might not be safe. This leaves people unsure about what to trust when it comes to food safety in China. You might wonder why the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, doesn't take stricter measures to address these issues, given that their members also eat in restaurants. While it's true that CCP members eat too, and there should be some concern, the truth is that at a national level, the CCP isn't serious about solving these problems. For example, the government could create a system to rigorously monitor and manage the transportation of cooking oil and industrial oil, ensuring that they're transported separately and consistently tracked via GPS. But they don't implement such a system. Why? This leads us to another point, the Chinese system known as Taigong, or special privileges. This system has existed since the early days of the CCP and ensures that the true upper echelons of the party are provided with special food and drink, free from contamination. This special system, adopted from the Soviet Union, was originally intended to prevent the poisoning of top CCP officials. To protect them from such risks, they have their own specially produced vegetables, meats, and grains, grown without pesticides and under strict supervision from the moment of production to consumption. This system is managed by a department responsible for elite security, and it's common knowledge in China that high-ranking CCP members consume different, safer food than ordinary citizens. For example, in Beijing, there was once a special farm known as Shangshan Farm, later renamed Jufan Farm, where these special crops were grown. These farms are still in operation today, and their food is supplied exclusively to CCP officials and top-level banquets. The food comes from various parts of China, depending on where the best fruits and vegetables can be grown. Because of this system, the true top-level CCP members are eating safe, high-quality food, while the rest of the population, and even lower-ranking CCP officials, do not have the same privilege. That's why, at a national level, the Chinese government isn't fully committed to solving food safety issues. They're not personally affected by them. Of course, local officials and mid-level CCP members may still take these problems seriously, especially if their own families are at risk of consuming dangerous food. In those cases, local governments do conduct investigations and punish businesses that violate food safety regulations. This selective enforcement happens because some people are directly affected, but it's never enough to solve the problem entirely at the national level. In conclusion, the issue of food safety in China is far from resolved, and while local crackdowns may occur, the problem persists on a broader scale. I'll share more specific examples and discuss school lunches in a future video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.